Thank you very much, Her Majesty, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be with you today, 1 year after hosting your seminar and this forum in the Ministry of Economy and sharing our views on innovation and economy all together. I just want to share a few words about the French situation and our reforms and precisely the strength of this partnership between our economies, and perhaps say a few words about Europe. First, because when we speak about innovation, economic relationship, we speak about the strength of our economies and how to work all together. And one of the key challenges for the French economy in the recent time is in low growth environment, how to deal with a very challenging fiscal situation and a very challenging competitiveness situation. So what we're trying to do is at the same time precisely to deliver a consistent strategy on all these items. With, I would say, 5 pillars on which we have based this strategy. The first one is fiscal consolidation in order to provide a sort of sustainable trend to give visibility to economic players and provide a much more sustainable fiscal framework. Why? Because we have today 56% GDP in public expenditure, which is definitely too high. And the guidance is to go to 50% to 2022, which is largely reasonable without killing basically our domestic growth and the growth of the Eurozone. But year after year, to reduce public expenditure, we started with the government expenditure. Now we are increasing the pressure on local authorities and social system with this perspective to reduce by 50 billion in 3 years in comparison to the trend, this expenditure. That's how to deliver the second pillar, which for me is, which was the most urgent one, i.e. the cost competitiveness item of our strategy. Why? Because we had a very high unit labor cost 2 to 3 years ago in comparison with a lot of competitors. So we decided to reduce by 40 billion euro in 3 years corporate charges and corporate taxes. 40 billion, which means 2 GDP points. That's the first time we have such a shift and such a cut for corporate charges and corporate taxes. And that's a mix. We decided we reallocate 80% of our cuts on public expenditure on corporate charges and corporate taxes. Why? Because without a decrease of unit labor costs, no way to invest and no way to recover. And we have the first results of this strategy from the end of 2014, because now our unit labor costs in the industrial sector is now lower than in Germany, which is the first time after many years. The third pillar of this strategy, which is probably the main one, is a non-cost competitiveness issue. It's about investment and innovation. And that's where we have to do much more together, because it's how to prepare our countries to this new economy and our countries to this new challenge. We are in the middle of a big disruption in a lot of sectors, with the eruption of new players, with a big acceleration of innovation, killing the boundaries between the different sectors, and so on and so on. We have to accelerate. We have to invest much more than yesterday. And we need much more private investment. That's why we decided to launch this initiative, Industry of the Future. And Bernard Charles, who is with you, is one of the 2 leaders of this initiative. It's how basically to help our corporates to invest much more on digital and produce on a new way, i.e. to reallocate the ability to produce and to produce much more rapidly with less CO2 emission, with more quality and adaptability to the final client on the final market. And it's how to restore our capacity in industrial terms precisely to produce here. So it's about innovation, private investment, and a big acceleration on this field. So we decided to identify 9 top priorities, these 9 solutions, and the matrix and the core of this strategy is this industry of the future. The 4th pillar is about modernization of the country on the different sectors, i.e. the different markets, products and goods markets. And basically we decided to lift a lot of barriers we had in transport, energy, mobility, professional services and so on, where we had a lot of unjustified protection for insiders. And these regulations were in fact killers for innovation, competition, and globalization for a lot of them. That's this modernization program we launched 1 year ago. We passed the first law, and we are preparing a new bunch of reforms on new sectors precisely to accelerate innovation in these different fields. And when now we launch a new initiative to accelerate and increase new opportunities for our economy, it's precisely about providing more opportunities for outsiders, more opportunities for innovators in these different sectors by killing useless regulations. Because a lot of these regulations are not in fact protection for fragile people. They are just blocking points for them. They are protection for insiders, and sometimes for inefficient insiders, which is not a good solution. The 5th pillar of our strategy is about labor market and modernization of the labor market. And we delivered a few reforms in order to decrease the cost of restructuring, to provide much more visibility, to provide much more trust in this market. We increased as well on this market the flexibility at the corporate level in case of downturn. And what we want to do now is to increase this level of visibility for economic players in case of individual layoffs and provide much more flexibility at the corporate level, and it will be the core of the upcoming reform beginning of 2016 on labor market. These 5 pillars are the core of the French modernization, which I think is key in order to strengthen our relationship and the ability for a lot of your corporates to invest much more on the ground and deliver much more today with the French counterparts and build together new innovative programs, new innovative projects, because we have a lot of things to be done in a lot of sectors, in the digital sector, in the automotive, in a lot of classical or new sectors, precisely to differentiate our offers and to increase our added value altogether. Because I do believe, and that's my second and final point, that what we can do in this new environment is just much more about Europe, much more about partnership altogether. Because one of the main risks today is a risk of divergence. We had this risk in economic terms a few months or a few semesters ago when we spoke about the Brexit and the financial crisis. We managed to fix the situation on the short run by a series of, very important decisions, banking union, decision about Greece and so on. And we have a lot of things to be done in order to fix on the long run the Eurozone. And we have now to do much more altogether at the Eurozone and the single market level in order to increase the stability and in order to deliver much more. But today, in our 2 countries, we are facing a lot of new challenges, not just in the economic field, but on the political field. In your country, with the refugees, in our countries, with these terrorist attacks. And I think that one of the main risks we have is the divergence between our public opinions, is the divergence between our collective decisions. And we have exactly the same issue with Germany or Austria and a lot of countries. Why? We are all facing basically the consequences of a new reality in Middle East, sometimes in Africa, and the consequences of global external risks, providing different consequences in our different countries. But the risk is that in your country, people think that the other countries don't take their share of the burden, and that you have this refugees issue and the other are not in a situation to help you or to share the burden or to provide the solidarity part of the package. The risk is that in our country, too many people could think that the solution is a national one, because the other countries are not in a situation to protect or help us to protect the French territory and to increase national protection in a certain way against Europe. My deep conviction is that these challenges are global challenges, and the best possible answer is a European answer. Why? Because it's all about our common security, our common ability to protect the external frontiers, our common ability to deal with the refugees and to host them and to share the cost. But when we speak about how to kill the terrorists and fight against them, how to hold the refugees and so on, it's all about common issues, common challenges. And our responsibility today as politicians, economic leaders, decision makers, is just to be able to explain the complexity of the situation and to push the European solution, to be in a situation in these difficult times, not to repeat the past mistakes, not to favor a national options, not to decide to stop the great history, because that's precisely in this kind of period that Europe is a necessity, not just because it was our past success, because that's one of the key solutions for our new challenges. And that's why now Europe is not just about economy, it's also about politics and our common ability precisely to reinvent a new Europe, enabling us to deal with this new challenge. Thanks very much for your attention, and have a good afternoon.